All right, so I wedged my clay, I created my pinch pot base. So now I'm going to show you how to build that up with coils. So right here, I have my clay, and I'm going to make this into some coils. So I'll show you how to do that. I'm going to take my clay, and the first step that I like to do is take the clay and create a coil just by squishing it with my hands, like squishing it into a snake type of shape. So it looks like this. It's really thick right now. We're gonna have to get it thinner, but I already have like a coil type of shape before I start to roll it. Okay? So now here I have it. What I'm gonna do is take my coil I've got here and roll it on the table, back and forth. And what I'm doing is I'm starting kind of toward the middle with my fingers together, and as I roll, I'm pulling the clay out like this. And it's really important to think about the fact that you are rolling the clay. Sometimes people will just kind of go like this, just a little like back and forth, and it just gets flatter and flatter. So I am rolling it all the way from my fingertips to the palm of my hand. Once again, just like the pinch pot, this takes practice. You may spend a whole class just practicing rolling coils until you can get a little better at coils. Just like anything you try for the first time, it takes practice to get good at it. So I'm rolling it. I make it look easy because I've done this many, many, many times. Now sometimes your coils get a little flat, and you can work with that. It's not the end of the world. The coil doesn't have to look perfect, but it does have to be a fairly even thickness that's not too thin or too thick. And so what you can do if it's getting flat is just kind of pinch it. Just take your fingers and pinch the parts that aren't looking so good back into like a circle type of form, and then keep rolling. Now the more you do this, you won't have to do that as much. But it's okay to just kind of pinch it back and keep rolling. So I'm rolling. As you can see, it's getting longer and longer. I'm going to actually break it in half. So I'm rolling it. Now how thin do you make your coil? Probably you're going to be keeping it thicker than you realize. You don't want a big fat coil like this because that's going to be too thick and it could break or blow up in the kiln. But we don't want them too thin either, because if it's too thin, it's not gonna give you that extra room that you need for smoothing, because we're gonna spend time smoothing our vessels, and that takes some clay off of them. So I say about a finger thickness. Once again, if you got really, really skinny fingers, maybe not quite a finger thickness. But if you look at your tool, like the base of this, that's actually a good thickness for your coil. So here's my coil that I created. So now I'm going to attach it onto here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to score and add some slip. So what is scoring? Scoring is taking your knife and making little cuts. And what that does is it creates a rough edge that's going to help the clay stay together as it dries. Otherwise, that clay may seem like it's sticking together, but as it dries, it starts to separate. So I scored that. I just roughed it up. And the scores have to be close together. They can't be like really far apart, but you actually need to rough it up. And then I'm going to score my coil where I'm going to attach as well. So anytime that you're attaching two pieces of clay, you have to score. It might seem like it just takes extra time and you could get away without doing it, but there's always the chance that it could fall apart on you and then all that work goes to waste that you did. So I scored my coil as well. Now what you're going to do is add slip in between the layer. Now slip is wet, gooey clay of clay mixed with water. And what you'll do, I don't actually have slip with me right now, but I would just take my knife, kind of stick it in the slip cup at your table, and just sort of, almost like you're buttering a piece of bread or something, just rub slip on that layer in between the pieces. Slipping and scoring is very important. So now I'm going to take my coil and I'm going to stack it right on there. And when you stack it on, you want to stack it evenly, and you don't want it slouching off to one side or the other. You want it straight up, unless you're trying to build some kind of an asymmetrical form, right? But you're going to stack it up on there, and that's going to create the first coil layer. Now, sometimes kids are tempted, once they get a few coils built up, to like pinch the sides and stuff, and that's not a good idea, because that makes it really thin, and it starts to thin out your clay. Actually, you think it's helping, but it's making it too thin, and then eventually it gets brittle and falls apart. So we don't want to do a lot of pinching. You can adjust, you can kind of make sure that it's even and adjust, but we're going to smooth this out later. So if it doesn't look perfect, that's okay, but don't do a lot of pinching once it's built. So now I'm just going to put another coil on there just to show you how you would start to build your form. I'm not going to slip and score this one just to save time, but I'm going to stack up another coil. Now, if I wanted my piece to come out more and start to flare out, I would stack it on the outer edge like that. So see how it's stacked a little more out. If I'm bringing it in, let's say I'm bringing it in to create a lip or something, I would stack it more on the inner edge, kind of coming in like that. So you will learn how to create a form by how you stack the coils. So for mine, this is going to be more just a gentle kind of curve and come up to a lip. So I'm just going to stack it slightly more on the outer edge. So it's not a bad idea to practice a form, just kind of spend one time just building it and seeing how coils can build up a form. So I've got 2 coils on there now. I would continue to kind of build it into that shape that I'm making. Okay, so those are the basics for creating the beginning of our coil vessel. And hopefully this demonstration will help, and you'll get more help in the classroom as well. All right, thanks everybody.